All right, so I have not had a chance up until this point to cover some of the endless string, it seems like, of conservative talk show, radio show hosts who are deciding to not get vaccinated and continuously spread anti-vax propaganda and then ending up in the hospital on ventilators and even dying. So there has been, again, a long string of these people actually contracting COVID and dying. And I have one example here that basically stood out to me so much that I really couldn't skip over it because this guy identified himself as Mr. Anti-Vax. So Florida radio host who called himself Mr. Anti-Vax dies of COVID-19. So his name is Mark Bernier, I guess is his name. And he was hospitalized 3 weeks ago. And I'm just going to go ahead and read some of the details here and then we'll talk about this. So a conservative radio host from Florida who criticized coronavirus vaccination efforts and called himself Mr. Anti-Vax before contracting COVID-19 himself has died, his station said on Saturday. And a statement said, "It's with great sadness that WNBD and Southern Stone Communications announced the passing of Mark Bernier, who informed and entertained." Informed is doing a lot of heavy lifting in this sentence, but who apparently informed and entertained listeners on WNBD for 30 years. We kindly ask that his privacy is given to Mark's family during this time of grief. And when he was hospitalized with COVID-19 3 weeks ago, WNDB operations manager Mark McKinney told local media, if you listen to his show, you've heard him talk about how anti-vaccine he is on the air. And in December, he told one guest, "I'm not taking it. Are you kidding me? Mr. Anti-Vax? Jeepers. Come on, Jeepers. Who the fuck says Jeepers anymore?" But anyways, Mr. Anti-Vax. Okay, so this is how this guy chooses to identify, right? And listen, I would like, ideally, in an ideal world, that this guy's death could then be reflected upon the people who listen to his show, and they might recognize, hey, maybe I should get vaccinated. Maybe this guy who was, spouting this anti-vax propaganda and literally identified himself as Mr. Anti-Vax, maybe his death could be some sort of a lesson for these people. Now, I don't really have much confidence in that it could be an actual lesson for these people because, if you're going to listen to somebody who is this anti-vax, and I'm going to assume that that's not the only information that you are consuming that is anti-vax content, I'm sure many of his members of his boomer audience are also on Facebook, and they're also looking at tons of other anti-vaxxers that are spreading this propaganda. But nonetheless, the reason why I make this video and talk about this is not to just dunk on this guy who called himself Mr. Anti-Vax, which, listen, if you're looking for sympathy, which I think there should be a lot of sympathy for people who have been fed some of the misinformation and some of the propaganda, and then they choose not to get vaccinated and end up dying, they are really victims of misinformation. But this guy is a propagandist, okay? And he is a propagandist who has literally profited from spreading some of this vaccine information and has undoubtedly gotten people sick and gotten people potentially killed with his misinformation. And so do I feel a large degree of empathy for this guy now that he is officially dead and can no longer spread that propaganda? Not necessarily, okay? Not necessarily. And listen, you can criticize me for that. Everyone is deserving of some empathy to some degree. But listen, you called yourself Mr. Anti-Vax, okay? Goddamn. I mean, if you wanted people to have sympathy when you died, then don't attach yourself to that type of horse, right? I mean, this is just, it's as surface level ridiculous as you could possibly get. Now, I don't know if this guy personally on his deathbed came around and decided, maybe I am in favor of vaccines now, because what we've seen is a trend among many of these people, even conservative radio hosts who end up on their deathbeds or end up on a ventilator, and they literally come out and say on their deathbeds that, okay, I was fucking wrong, and, my viewers should go get vaccinated, and if I make it out of the hospital, I will tell everyone to get vaccinated. But it's just, it ends up being the case that a lot of times they don't make it out of the hospital and they are not able to go and tell people to get vaccinated. And so, this is just a lesson, okay? Be warned, many of these propagandists are literally ending up dying, okay? Obviously, they're wrong about the efficacy of the vaccines. The vaccines work. It's as simple as that. You just got to go look at the data showing that, 99% or more than 99% of people who are ending up in the hospitals and dying from COVID are unvaccinated people. Obviously, there's going to be some degree of breakthrough cases, and there are breakthrough cases where people who are vaccinated have died, but the statistics on this have been clear for a really long time, okay? If you get vaccinated, you're much less likely to get COVID, and in the case that you do get it, you're much less likely to end up in a hospital, you're much less likely to end up on a ventilator and die. So it's really simple, guys. Go get the fucking vaccine, tell everybody in your family to go get the vaccine, and stop listening to propagandists like this, and hopefully their deaths, if anything else, or if nothing else, can be some sort of a lesson in, these propagandists don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They're not looking at the data. They don't have your best interests at heart. All they're doing is profiting off of passing on endless suffering and death as we continue in this pandemic that many of these deaths are entirely preventable, including Mr. Anti-Vax here.